our youth debate on ocean pollution. As Monique mentioned before, oh, I see Sunai now. As Monique mentioned, um, this debate is Belfort, who is a volunteer of us, one of our volunteers. That's just my own opinion, all right? Since 2018, she's known for her advocacy related to sexual and reproductive health and rights for youth, but she is very passionate about climate action and the environment, and that is why when we needed to find someone to moderate this panel, we immediately thought of her. So, without further ado, please, Michelle, you take it from here, and good luck.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Cheyenne, for the introduction. Very kind of you. For one moment, please, I'm trying to activate my camera. I'm still having issues with that. I don't know why that is occurring, but we'll try to do it without. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the official online virtual conference of the Green Heritage Foundation on World Ocean Day 2021. I would like to welcome all the panel members that we have in our midst today, and I would like to thank the Green Heritage Foundation together with World Wildlife Fund and Policy Forum Guyana for making this event possible. The theme for this year is land-based sources of pollution and their adverse effect on ocean and human health. So what we'll be highlighting today are definitely issues around plastic pollution, freshwater pollution from hydrocarbon exploitation, and transportation at sea will be covered definitely. I would like to introduce to you the panel members that we have with us today. We have a great group of youngsters that are very passionate about environmental issues. And the first one I would like to introduce is Matai Samuels. Matai is a 16-year-old youth activist, and from my own experience, I know that he's very passionate about children's rights and has been working with UNICEF Suriname since 2017. He focuses on human rights and climate action. Welcome, Matai Samuels. If you could raise your hand for us so that everybody can see. Thank you. The next person I would like to introduce is Kaylee Becker. Kaylee Becker is a second-year geoscience student at Atticus, which is the University of Suriname, and she is a member of 2 student chapters of her faculty, and prospective member at the Rotaract Club of Paramaribo and an observer at GCI Unify. Welcome, Kaylee. The third person I would like to introduce is Ragini Gayadin. Ragini Gayadin is a 22-year-old law student at the Anton de Kom University of Suriname, and she leads a very active lifestyle trying to balance college, work, and her social activities. In her free time, she likes to draw, work out, and learn new skills to challenge herself. Welcome, Ragini Gayadin. And the next person I would like to introduce is Sunaina Mohan. Sunaina is a Master of Science in Petroleum Geosciences and Engineering student at the University of Suriname, and she's the chairman of the Meersora Resort Council of Kamawena and the vice chairman of the Association of Youngsters of Kamawena. That is a social, educational, and development organization. She's part of many organizations and always strives to make a positive contribution to society. Welcome, Ms. Sunaina. The last but not least, the person that I would like to introduce is Shania Persod. She's a first-year student and majors in environmental science and minors in political science. One of her many aspirations includes to find a balance between humanity and nature where neither are harmed. Shania serves as a youth ambassador at the Rights of the Child Commission at Empower Guyana Consultancy, through which she volunteers at the Hourani Girls Home and that is her root of inspiration. Welcome, Shania. I'll later on try to turn on my camera. Apologies for that again. Having some technical difficulties on this end. There will be some set of rules before we start this youth debate. Actually, I know we have a great group of youngsters that are very opinionated and are very passionate about environmental issues. Every panel member will have approximately 1 minute and 30 seconds to for the discussion per topic, and there will also be an opportunity to ask questions. We would like to encourage our viewers to use the Q&A section on the right to ask any question relevant to the topic. And if your question has already been asked by somebody else, feel free to give that a like so we know which questions to highlight, which the public finds most important. For the first debate topic, we're going to highlight human health / comfort versus environmental health. How do we keep it balanced? How do we convince people to give up their unfriendly environmental habits? Examples of this are overfishing, garbage dumping, single-use plastic, destruction of coral reefs, overconsumption. And what we're also seeing is that in the COVID-19 pandemic, the masks we wear are made of single-use plastic, which usually ends up in the ocean, entangling birds and marine life. The question is, or the debate topic is, in order to achieve environmental sustainability in our world today, significant change must be made in our daily lives. However, what we're seeing is that human comfort / health should always be top priority. And I would now like to turn to the public, to our panel members, apologies, and I would like to ask who would be the first to address this topic. Once again, in order to achieve environmental sustainability in our world today, significant change must be made in our daily lives. However, human comfort / health should always be top priority. Okay, I would like to invite one of the panel members. Maybe Matai could start off the topic, and then we'll continue with Ragini and Kaylee, and then we'll see from there.
Okay, since I've been pointed out, good afternoon. So I think we should illuminate the fact that the health of the environment is the health of humanity. And as far as comfort goes, the ease that accompanies our every demand has created a total disregard for the links in our shared chain, the chain that we're destroying. You could go two ways. You could either scare people straight and sanction them into being mindful of the environment every step of the way, or you could teach those who can still be taught. Incorporate it in the school curricula. Geography, biology, history, physics, and chemistry all give the perfect invitation for discussions with children and youth about climate change. We should be utilizing that. Teach them to have that love for the environment through that continual exposure. Involve them and build on existing interest, but also make it personal. Ice caps melting sure seems far away until you link it to the impending flooding of Paramaribo and coastal Suriname. By making it more local, by bringing it closer to home, I think you could also spark the needed action to combat climate change.
Okay, thank you very much, Matai. Very interesting point of view. I would like to invite the next panel member, Ms. Ragini.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you. Hi, all. My name is Gayadi, and my statement on this topic is that instead of human health and comfort, we should start prioritizing environmental sustainability, because I think generally people don't really care about the environmental issue and see it as a distant problem, and think that if it can be solved at the last moment, what we can. People prioritize human comfort by quick use of products such as single-use plastic instead of biodegradable products. And nowadays we see that the plastic, and in particular the masks, end up in the ocean, entangling the marine life. And that's why we should start promoting and prioritizing the environmental sustainability instead of human or comfort health. So that is my statement on this topic, and this can be done by the reduction of usage of plastic. And to enforce this action, we can, as a government, we can implement a new law or an exceptional law where we forbid the use of plastic, and this will lead to the fact that people will use a minimum form of plastic or no plastic at all, or they can use biodegradable products. So that's my statement.
Okay, thank you. I would like to invite Ms. Kaylee to share her thoughts on this topic.
Yes, in my opinion, regarding balance and human health comfort, I think if you keep the environment a safe and healthy place, we as humans automatically reap those benefits, and we could also gain more comfort knowing that we are in a safe and healthy environment. And regarding unfriendly environmental habits, should definitely spread awareness and lay facts in front of people, whether it's to radio stations, TV commercials, newspapers. Most important nowadays is definitely through social platforms. Because of COVID, a lot of people are definitely more busy on their social media. So if you keep displaying of ads to them and lay the facts in front of them, they might be interested in helping into the sustainable development. So that's my opinion and statement regarding health and comfort.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to invite Sunaina to share her thoughts on this topic. Hi, Sunaina.
Hi everyone.
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Yes, thank you very much. So I'm actually having some internet issues here. It's raining heavily. I have no idea if you can see me because I don't see anything. But so I'm actually I'm agreeing with the points made by the panel members. A sustainable and uh environment actually begins with ourselves, and we have to start as a human being ourselves with this action. It is important.
Hello? Is Sunaina still in the call?
She left.
Okay. Okay, so while we wait on her to log in, there were some interesting points shared by the panel members. Highlighting the importance of the environment, and that one thing that I thought was very that we should highlight again is that the environmental health is the health of human beings. But one of the facts that we're seeing currently is that humans, however, always reach out for comfort. Even though in Suriname, certain big companies or stores, they actually demand people to pay for a plastic bag. We see that people are still willing to give out that money to use a plastic bag. So when we think of achieving environmental sustainability, the question remains, in creating and coming up with these issues, is it which one is actually, but which way is the best way to go to actually change people their way of living, or taking into account that human comfort and health will remain a top priority for the human race or governments in general, and have more solutions that cater to that need. Is the question clear? That when we think of these solutions, these environmental solutions, that we should be aware of of what we're seeing, the trend that we're seeing, that what humans are doing is or what governments are doing, or just society in general, is putting human comfort and health as a top priority, even taking into account environmental sustainability, because there are a lot of facts out there about the environment. Even when you go to certain restaurants, it's highlighted that don't take a straw, but people still do it for their own comfort, and also these habits that are a bit hard to break. So do you have any suggestions or a meaning about this, where we should put we should cater to the human comfort and the health as a top priority? I think I would like to welcome any panel member.
I want to add that you mentioned people are willing to pay for plastic bags, but why aren't they willing to pay for paper bags instead? And if they, I think that they should rather ban the implementation of plastic use when we're going to stores to go shop, and instead of that, just bring your own bag or bring your own paper bag instead of taking a plastic bag. That is already a step to a better and safe environment.
Okay, thank you for that, Kaylee. I actually agree with that. That would actually be changing human behavior, or the behavior of society. But one thing that a survey was done in 2018, and the big corporate companies actually highlighted that the reason why they're not banning plastic bags in general is because it might reduce the amount of customers that they receive. Because an example, imagine that you come from work, and you want to do a quick drop by the store, and you have about 200 items, and there are no bags available, because the policy is that you should bring your own bag. Don't you think that will limit customers to enter certain stores? I definitely believe that in the long run, if this would be something, if this was something that would be done, collectively, that it would definitely change human behavior. But what you also have among these stores is that what one is not willing to provide, the other is willing to. So that one store might lose customers because they actually are forcing people to bring their own bags, and the other is actually catering to, let's say, it's catering to the comfort of humans of having plastic bags available. Matai, would you like to? Yes.
Yes, thank you. I agree. It will take some time to adapt to more sustainable bags, and reusable ones and biodegradable ones. Remember when we introduced the food containers made from sugarcane fibers? We didn't start seeing less containers in the environment, but the containers that we were seeing were now biodegradable. So there wasn't really a change in behavior, but the consequences of that bad behavior are less severe. So I think at first there would be certainly a decline in customers at certain firms and certain stores, but I don't think that should discourage the efforts made to include more of sustainable and reusable bags. And you could make it part of your policy. Hey, we you can't shop here if you don't bring your own bag, and that would be a small step that could go a long way. But I think it should also come from you should have a willing society, but also with the guidance of the government. You should not, I would not say regulations from the government, but I think that a campaigns should be started, that there should be certain caveats. They should be included in the laws that cause people to be more environmentally cautious in everything we do.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Matai. There's a question actually from the public, and I believe one of the panel members mentioned sanctions. And the question is, who should be sanctioned? Should it be the companies? Should it be the people? Or should it be both? And how do we make sure that these sanctions are fair?
I would like to answer that since I mentioned the sanctions. I think the companies and the people should be sanctioned. And if we look at sanctions being fair, everyone has their own perspective about it. And the sanction can be to produce less plastic or no plastic at all, or there could be a sanction to not use plastic at all. And like Kaylee said and Matai said, people have habits, and bad habits are hard to learn of, and good habits are hard to learn. And if there is a law, an exceptional law that forbids us to use plastic, I think people will abide that law, and I think that that will be more beneficial for the usage of plastic being diminished. Yes, that's it.
Okay, thank you. I would like to conclude this debate topic. I think it was very clear that how the health of the environment is the health of the people, and that it's a two-way street. While government is putting in place regulations, communicating with big corporate companies to also put these in place, we should also focus on educating our society to unlearn these bad habits and make them aware of the effects that these bad habits are having. And I think one of the things that was also highlighted is that we're still dealing with the fact that human comfort and health, I think within the COVID-19 pandemic, is highlighted so well, that we're all using masks, but nobody's really asking the question, like, why aren't these masks biodegradable? Because we're putting human health and comfort first. It's easy to make. We can make them in big bulks. They're cheaper, but nobody's really moving. Maybe there are, but not enough resources are moved towards creating these biodegradable masks, or looking into how most cost efficient these would be. So that's one thing that we're actually dealing with, and we've had to deal with this, since the past. That's why we're actually at the point where we need active climate action. And that, just being aware of this, we should also look at one of the great examples, I think, where that, these biodegradable containers that were created, you're still seeing them everywhere, but the effect that it has on the environment is way less than the ones we used to have before. Thank you very much for the first topic, for sharing your thoughts. And we'll go into the next topic. And the next topic is actually about mercury contamination in Surinamese food. So the extent of it's about mercury contamination. The extent of mercury contamination in Surinamese food fishes due to small-scale gold mining, the scallions, was investigated by determination of the total mercury concentration in 380 freshwater fishes, 109 estuarine fishes, and 110 fishes of the Atlantic Ocean. These scallions suck bottom salts from the reservoir in search of gold. They provide source of income and employment for the population, but form a threat to the health and well-being of the local communities and the ocean. The presence of scallions on the rivers of Suriname, mostly located near traditional living areas of the tribal communities, are also polluting their sources of drinking water and threatening the provisions of their protein. Although Suriname has signed the Minamata Convention on Mercury, there is little approach to the scallions in Suriname that are still operating. Although scallions provide a source of income and employment for the population, the operation of the scallions has to be stopped officially by the Surinamese government since they are polluting the water. And the point I would like to highlight again for the panel members is that the debating topic is although scallions provide a source of income and employment for the population, the operation of the scallions has to be stopped officially by the Surinamese government since they are polluting the water. Okay, I would like to invite Ragini this time to share her thoughts. And it's unfortunate that Sinaina dropped out of the call because I think this is one of her areas of expertise. Ms. Ragini, do you want to address the topic?
Thank you, Michelle. My statement on this topic is that the operation of scallions should not be halted, or they should remain in operation, keeping the financial crisis in mind. That there are big factors playing a role when the scallions will be halted, because a lot of people that work in the scallions, in particular the employment of many people, will lose their source of income. And if we halt the operation of scallions, they will lose their source of income. So the scallions could still be in operation, but it could be better monitored and better legislated, and there could be better technologies. And since mercury is the main issue that scallions pollute the water, we could implement better technologies such as the use of, I have this alternative of mercury retards. They do use mercury, but they have it in a shut system so it doesn't pollute the air. And another alternative is placer mining. This does not include mercury at all. So scallions could still be in operation, but with better technologies without polluting the water. That's my opinion.
Okay, thank you for sharing your thoughts on this, Ragini. Very much appreciated. Kaylee, would you like to share your thoughts on this topic or your points on this topic?
As I've done some research on that of scallions, I found that 8 scallions were actually stopped in 2015 by our ex-Minister of Natural Resources, Regilio Dodson. That was in 2015, and now 6 years later, scallions are still operating on different creeks and rivers in Suriname. And we could still hear, there was also news last year that a lot of people living nearby the rivers and creeks are having health problems because the scallions are polluting those rivers, not only because of mercury, but the way their dredging works is really harmful to the fish that live, also people who use the water themselves. But a problem is that the people who are operating are still getting licensed. And who knows, maybe in 2015 when they had a conference with the ex-minister, they didn't receive any sustainable solutions. But as Ragini mentioned, that I do agree that if they are still going to operate with scallions, that they do need to have better technologies and ways to win their gold and even their dredging. So that's my statement on.
Okay, Mr. Matan, I would like to invite you.
Thank you. It's very easy to say from my position that the scallions should not remain operational, but to the inhabitants of the interior, it's their sole source of income, so one of their main income sources. So I would also plea for a more regulated field, just like the general mining industry, that we have more legislation, more regulation about around the scallions. But also, I think the people should be thoroughly included in efforts for sustainability. You can't decide about the people without involving them. So I think the communities in the interior should also be educated in more sustainable means of gaining money. So I think more um, gardening initiatives should be started. I think we should also really work towards more sustainable mining. And as Ragini said, there are ways of working with mercury where it doesn't enter the water. Rather, the soil is added to the machines and not the other way around, so you don't have as much pollution. But I also think you can, if we the most of the people working on the scallions are young people, so I think they could also be approached maybe by the government to be included in the mining, but done in such a way that one, their communities are sustained, because that's a key here, but also preserving their own community, poisoning the waters and the environment around that.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. I think all of these points were really great. We have different approaches. Ragini really mentioned the scientific part behind it. Kaylee really went into consulting and consulting the people that are actually operating the scallions, and Matai highlighting that it's nothing about us actually without us for the people in the interior. I think one of the main points that one of the things that I would like to highlight is that, looking at other sustainable solutions or a source of income is key here, because gold mining, especially the way that it's done by the scallions, has major effects for not only the environment, but for the people living close by. One of the interesting points that were raised also is that the people working in the gold mines often are from these communities. An example, Bokopondo, which is one of the districts in Suriname, are actually the people operating the scallions are people living in Bokopondo itself. And I would say approximately or generally the point of view is that big mining companies come into Suriname. And although they one of the policies I know is that they should employ the people from the specific district to come work for the gold mining company, but not everyone is able to work for that company. So what you have are these individuals called potluckers or scallions that operate on their own informed teams. And Ragini mentioned an alternative for mercury, but the question remains, do they have the money or just also the mindset to really work with these alternatives, and is it facilitated from the from the government, and what should be the approach? Because there are two things happening. It's illegal gold mining and big versus big corporate companies that actually are unable to employ these illegal gold miners. And for Ragini, my question would be, how would you get these illegal these scallions to actually switch to the alternative that you mentioned? And another question remains, how do you change the mindset of the community that they are entitled to mining that gold, because that is the general assumption that they are entitled because they live in the specific district, and if foreigners can come in and take the gold and give little percentage to the country, why shouldn't they be allowed to also do gold mining and keep 100%, which is going to their own community? So for Ragini, my question specifically is, how do you get these scallions to switch to the alternative which you mentioned, taking into account that they might have limited resources?
I would like to add that the scallions, their license is being removed next year. It was in the news, and to relive this alternative, they can actually, just all the scallions can form a group and get better monitored, so they can ask a license as one group, and there is an overview of what's really happening. And if you work in a group, you have better financial issues and not issues, sorry, financial. And if you work as a group, then there is a better overview over what they are doing. And if they are using better technologies, then you also have an overview over what's happening in that district as particular. If we look at the technologies they can use, if you are a group, you can per person contribute to this group, and as one group you can ask for a license and one technology, and that can help to improve your own system.
Wow, thank you. That's a great point, Ragini, for them to come together and form an association. I think that's interesting. For another question, I think that's specifically for Matai, because you mentioned to actually defer to other sources of income. How do you actually persuade these people persuade the communities, the people operating the scallions, that they should switch these alternatives, while big corporate companies, from their point of view, are coming in and doing gold mining, of which a small percentage is going to Suriname as a country, and an even smaller percentage is actually going into the community that lives nearby.
You raised a very good point. It would seem very unfair, I think, to those communities that they're not allowed to sustain and in their best efforts to maintain their communities. But I think you would have to. I think most people in the interior aren't fully aware of the effects of mercury and how much mercury is consumed in these areas, because it really seeps and trickles through every layer, all the layers of the ecosystem. So I think you could really show the adverse effects of the mercury poisoning, but I think you can also. I think the interior has been dealt a cold shoulder for the last 40 or so years. So I think a more inclusive approach, a real approach where we get to sit with the inhabitants themselves, so we can brainstorm together. So we wouldn't be enforcing new solutions. We wouldn't be saying, hey, you cannot use scallions anymore. This is what you have to do. I think we would have to approach them on a community basis and hey, what works for you? What are the possibilities you have? And I think we could even go towards farming of fish. Maybe that would be something. It would be that's one of the pragmatic approaches in my head. So it would utilize the area to the fullest. It would be combined with the expertise the community itself already has, and it would be mitigating the adverse effects of gold mining twofold. You wouldn't be actively mining gold anymore, so releasing mercury in the ecosystem, and you would also be rehabilitating, because that's also a big argument, that a big discussion that always started when it's about endangered species, and why can people in the interior hunt, and why can they eat them, and why are other allowed? It's because those are the middle the resources you have, the resources you have available. So that's what you have to live off of, and it's in your best interest to keep it viable. So it's a big part of the ecosystems we're trying to maintain, to trying to save, can't top of the word coma, but the indigenous communities and the maroon communities in those ecosystems are key.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I think this discussion has been brought to the next level. I like the results of this discussion because starting out with Kaylee, she mentioned that there have been consultations in the past where scallions have been stopped, but what were the alternatives for these scallions? Because we see them coming back in even bigger amounts. And also, one thing that's happening right now is that we're going through a recession and the price of gold is really high. So we're seeing a lot of people, especially with COVID-19, where actually a lot of branches, a lot of traditional ways uh, of of economic benefit are dying out. A lot of people are, moving towards, creating a group and operating as operating these scallions. And I think an interesting point that Ragini mentioned is that, next year this might be stopped. And what will be the approach, from the government? That's one. And aside from that, what will be the approach from the scallions? I think definitely there will be consultations needed. And the best way to come actually to a sustainable solution is for the scallions to actually form an association. And when that association is formed, trying to link the main points, is for the government to come up with sustainable solutions, even in giving them alternatives for mercury, where they would more so have an overview of the technical possibilities that there are and scientific possibilities. And aside from that, the communities living close nearby need to be informed about the long-term effect of a mercury gold mining. One thing that we do know is that, when you're hungry right now, you really don't care about next week because you really want to eat now. So if this is your main source of income, if you're explaining like what the long-term effect of for next year, we're even trying to make it to next year. And if this source of income dies out, I might not even make it tomorrow. So we need to simultaneously give them more options, more sources of income, where so it might not be their natural go-to, but I would say the government would have to facilitate, these possible solutions, these alternatives for sources of income, while we educate the community on what the long-term effects directly for them can be. And that, one of the interesting source of income, is fishing that Matai mentioned, which even might not be possible if they're polluting, the whole environment. So that's very interesting. Okay, then we're going to the final debate topic, and this is a quite interesting one. Alternatives to single-use plastics are expensive. It makes more financial and environmental sense to stick to fossil fuels. How can governments and communities find pragmatic mechanisms to assist the transitions to renewables? So once again, alternatives to single-use plastics are expensive. It makes more financial and environmental sense to stick to fossil fuels. How can governments and communities find pragmatic mechanisms to assist the transition to renewables? Anyone, feel free to take the floor. Actually brings us to the first topic of discussion, but a different point of view, not taking into account the human comfort, but just single use of plastic, the alternatives to single use of plastics are expensive. Okay, yes, Kaylee.
Yes, as I've mentioned before, if the Surinamese citizen doesn't want to pay more for alternatives, I suggest they bring their own sustainable market or paper bags when shopping. The implementation of paying cheaper for renewables in stores instead of single-use plastics, or they could completely ban the usage of single-use plastics. For daily waste of what you have at home, they could implement making big paper bags so it's easier and also, in my opinion, way sustainable for our future and the environment.
Thank you for that.
Lastly, they could also teach children at a very young age the sustainability of using paper bags when shopping, all those little things, those straws, plastic bottles, etc. All that. If they teach that from a young age, they could do it when they're also growing up and getting older, and share that information and knowledge with others.
Okay, thank you very much. The question, I think the last one was is a very good one to start at a young age. How can governments and communities, how can we find these pragmatic mechanisms to assist the transition to renewables? So instead of an example using what we have is single-use plastics, and what we're seeing is certain alternatives are more expensive. Paper bags are more expensive than single-use plastics. We're also seeing this, in stores. And how can the government find ways to assist this transition of aiding society to go from single-use plastic to other alternatives? One was mentioned by Kaylee, which is to start at an early age. And Matai, I saw you unmute, and then we'll have Ragini.
Yes, I think that when we're trying to move to more sustainable packaging materials and moving away from single-use plastics, I think we could up the taxation of plastics, and not just for that would start with companies that if let's not name names, but if a certain company generally packages more with plastic, the price of the taxation would go up. That would also mean that the price for the public goes up. But at the same time, the income you get from that extra taxation could be directed to more sustainable alternatives. We don't even realize where most of our plastics lie. Yeah, they're in packaging, but they're also in pampers, in the what do you call them? What is pamper in the English? Sorry.
Diapers.
Yeah, in diapers. Yeah, in diapers and in feminine products, in clothing, and there are already more sustainable alternatives. We could move away from more polypropylene and other synthetic materials and move more to cotton, and we could also look into seaweed and into mushrooms. There are fibers. I also saw one of the booths for Gobana. There are banana fibers that you can use that would be that could be used for collecting garbage, and it would all be compostable. So now those are some of the small efforts that you can already make. But I think that it's not even the part that it's more expensive that gets most people. I think it's you have to go out of your way to be more sustainable. There's not really a streamlined process. There's no highway to sustainability. And I think the efforts and the focus that is put on single-use plastics, that same effort and energy could be directed to more sustainable alternatives.
Thank you, Matai. Ragini.
My statement is that on this topic, that it does not make sense to stick to fossil fuels because it's less expensive, because the fossil fuels are damaging the climate much more than the plastic is doing. So financially and environmentally, there are better options for the government to opt to, such as replacing plastic with biodegradables, wood, hemp, glass, maybe a plastic cup replaced with a glass mason jar maybe. And if it's financially expensive for the government to switch to biodegradables or renewables, they can create a separate income for prioritization of the environment. For example, what I've learned when I went to Wereld in Suriname is that there are mangroves that have CO2 in it, and if you sell that or do emission trading, you can cover your finances, and you can establish a program where you can invest in renewables. So I'm not saying that if it's financially expensive, you can do it, because there are a lot of options to opt to. Yes.
Thank you, Ragini. Thank you for your thoughts, for your opinions on this specific topic. I think it was very clear. To highlight the main points, I saw what was highlighted. First is policy, education, policy from the government to really facilitate the process. I think in other countries, they actually subsidize items that are biodegradable and environment friendly for people to actually switch to what is less expensive. But another interesting approach is actually to up the tax, which will force these big these big companies to actually switch to more environmental friendly products. I remember participating in March for the Ocean. I believe it was 2018, and the team 2019, I think, and the theme actually was to hold these big companies accountable. So whenever you would go out and certain companies that choose to put their products in plastic containers, which are very famous, you would actually post that and actually through social media create the effect, from customers to force them to switch to more environmental friendly products. See, what's really needed also is then we're switching to the point that Kaylee and Ragini also mentioned is the education to educate society on what's really important and to start at an early age. I think one of the interesting things and why I was very excited to be part of this debate as a moderator is first of all the panel members, very excited to have all of them here. But secondly, the fact that we're not the first generation to feel the effects of climate change, but we are part of the last generation that can actually take climate action to stop the major effects that can occur. In 1980, maybe it would be a discussion that you would have would not be easy to prove, but in 2021 there's a lot of scientific proof. There are a lot of studies have been conducted and the proof is there, and it relies on young people like yourself in the panel. Unfortunately, Sunaina couldn't log in again, apologies for that, to be committed to taking climate action and working together with organizations as the Green Heritage Foundation that are committed to creating a better environment. It is really young people like yourselves that will make climate action possible and really tackle climate change. I would like to thank all of you for your participation, for sharing your thoughts. I believe the discussion was on a next level, especially the part of the associations, forming associations, education starting at an early age, and even, mentioning other sources of income that needs to be facilitated by the government, holding governments accountable, but also holding the people accountable. I think that's a two-way street, and even tapping into holding companies accountable. So I think you said it all. Thank you to the Green Heritage Foundation for making this possible, bringing young people together. Thank you for facilitating the debate, and I would like to wish you a great day. Keep being great. Keep fighting for the environment. We really need it, and have a nice day.